how do we make sure as leaders that we're being transparent? We're telling them not only what the decisions that we're making are, but how we got to those decisions. How did we make those decisions and what was the thought process of doing that? And that sounds so trivial, but I remember earlier in my career, I was never transparent. I was just like, hey, these are our goals. These are our objectives. Boom, that's it. The only thing that we were going to do. Now I realize that if I bring them in and I'm transparent in regards to how we got to those goals, how we made those decisions, and how different components within the organization impact and affect those goals, and how do they affect them, it builds that collaboration. It builds that unity amongst my group. It allows them to take ownership, to give input at the same time. Again, they want to be valued. They want to be heard. The third thing is talking about collaboration and belonging. At the end of the day, everyone wants to feel like they belong to something, whether it's a family, whether it's a company. I tell people all the time, 8 hours out of the day is a long time to be miserable. You don't want to be somewhere where you're miserable. That's a lot of your life. And so how do we let them be involved? Let them feel like they belong. And that's by bringing them in, collaborating, working not in a silo, but together to reach our goals. The changing employee mindset, they want to be a part of it. They want to have passion and purpose of what they're doing. This is a way for us as leaders to show them, hey, we want you to be involved. Let's talk through. I'm not going to go from the top down. We're going to figure it out from the bottom up. As I tell people all the time, I don't work in your position every day. So how am I going to come in and make decisions on how you should best do your job? What I want you to do is tell me, how can I help support you? How can I make you feel like a part of the team? You belong here. So how do we do that as leaders? I challenge you, when you are sitting with your staff, ask them those questions. See if they feel like they belong. See if they feel like they're being heard. And again, if they're not, how can you change that within the organization? Is it a culture? It's part of the culture. And if you're not doing it from the top, again, culture funnels down. If you're not living that culture yourself, how do you expect them to do the same thing? The fourth one is agency. We used to tell people exactly what time they needed to be at work, when they were going to leave for work, what time they were going to take lunch, where they were going to sit, how they were going to do it. Agency. Now as leaders, we need to figure out, how can we set our employees up for success? How can we help them be their best selves so that they're the most productive? Because at the end of the day, it all funnels down. How do I build our bottom line? How do I increase my EBITDA? And that's by having happy, well employees. And if I am treating them with agency of, how can I support you to be your best self? Doesn't that at the end of the day help my company? And I'll say this, even in my personal life, it's the same way. How do I give my kids enough autonomy, not to make bad decisions, but to make decisions and reap the consequences of those decisions? If I'm making all their decisions for them, how are they ever going to learn? How can I support them and where they work best? I used to make my daughter every day do her homework down at the kitchen table where I could see her. And I know a lot of parents are going to say this isn't the right thing. I'm now to the point where I allow her to do her homework in her room. Now you're going to say you should never do that. Well, you're not watching what they're doing. I got tired of battling this on a daily basis. I finally gave in and realized, hey, you're going to pay the consequences. If you're not done with your stuff, you deal with it. And guess what? I never have to have another argument. Why? Because in agency, she works better in that realm. I never realized forcing her to sit at the kitchen table, there was so many distractions. And she didn't do well in those distractions. But where she does do well is in her room. There's many nights that I might sit in there with her and read my book while she's doing her homework, but I'm giving her the autonomy and the agency to work in the best environment for her. And therefore, we need to do that with our staff. How do we set them up? And again, some of you guys have heard, I hate work from home. I have been fighting that since COVID. However, I realized that my people were more productive. We did compromise. They come into the office 2 days a week and they get to work from home the other days. But I had to compromise because a lot of them I realized it wasn't about working longer hours. It was about the impact they were making. And guess what? When they got to leave to go to their kids' softball game or baseball game, they were happier employees. And at the end of the day, they were getting their job done. They were making positive impacts. They were achieving the goals that we had set. Therefore, why am I not being a better leader and trying to micromanage them of being in that place all the time? I was giving them agency to be their best selves and the work in the best way that made them most effective. And so I encourage all of you as leaders, as parents, take a step back. Think about that for a second of how can we build a sustainable culture, not only in our companies, but also in our personal lives and in our families. It's the same thing. Again, I go back to how are we able to establish that both in our personal and our professional lives? How do we set the culture within our organization and we live, eat, and breathe it ourselves so that it funnels down? How do we step up as leaders and show and lead by example?